I was very fortunate to have watched Code Geass after it finished airing. Can you imagine having to wait to experience the series' conclusion after the cliffhanger in R1? Yep, neither can I, and thankfully we don't have to. Today I'm going to finish my anime reviews from the original timeline with Code Geass Lelouch Other Rebellion R2. Like R1, I watched many reviews for R2, and the goal this time around was to hear what's already been discussed so as not to retread the same things. This is obvious, but spoiler alert. Let's start with a follow-up from my R1 review. Shirley was done dirty in R1, and it only got worse in R2. See, at least after the memory wipe, she was working around it and getting close to the truth. Shirley got close to figuring out Lelouch's connection to the Black Knights towards the end of R1. So what does R2 do? They rewrite her memories to put her back to square one as part of Code Geass's Great Reset. When Shirley finally gets her memories back, Rollo kills her. I respectfully ask, what was the point of Shirley's character? She was relevant for the first 14 episodes in R1, then we have to wait 23 episodes for her to regain her memories, only for her to then die. What a waste of a good character and a victim of poor planning. Unfortunately, Colin received similar treatment. Britannia captured her and kept her prisoner for 8 episodes. Why? I guess they had no idea how to handle the fact that her nightmare frame was too OP. Colin's character was disrespected with both the even more perverse fan service and by ignoring her identity and her family struggles. Neither one is explored heavily in R2 outside of some throwaway conversations. What we get instead is Colin contemplating her feelings on Lelouch. With Shirley now out of the story, Colin naturally took the role as being the girl to fall in love with Lelouch. In turn 24, Colin exhibits the same behavior as Shirley from R1, where she gets jealous that C2 might be in love with Lelouch. All Colin seemed to care about was helping Lelouch/Zero or trying to figure out what he meant by "you have to live." I like the romance between Colin and Lelouch, but it should not have been the only focus for Colin. They missed a big opportunity in the beginning where Colin confronted Lelouch about what happened at the end of R1. I understood why C2 sealed her memories, but making Colin and Shirley temporarily irrelevant was lazy and unnecessary. R2 gave us the climax to each of Lelouch's relationship with the 3 main love interests. After an eternal struggle, Colin chooses Lelouch as the one she loves over Zero. This culminates to the moment in turn 19 where Lelouch tells Colin to live, and in turn 22 when the two share a kiss. Shirley's death was so devastating because she finally understood what Lelouch was fighting for and wanted to help him. We learned about C2's past, the terms of her contract, and how the two coincided. Through Lelouch's actions, C2 gained the will to live and stopped only accumulating memories, and a romance seemingly formed towards the end. R2 doubled down on everything that R1 did, including aspects that I did not like. This includes the fan service. And for some reason, the creators decided to sexualize even more characters in R2. I was annoyed with the new way they sexualized Colin, Valletta, and Millie. Colin got the worst of it for sure. What's interesting as Code Geass progresses, the outfits for the Nightmare Frame pilots becomes increasingly sexualized. Again, the fan service was unnecessary, but at least it usually made sense in context. But there was one character that received this treatment which really pissed me off. Cornelia. Considering she is one of my favorite characters in Code Geass, this was unacceptable. Previously, Cornelia had one fan service moment. This was from a picture drama that no one should watch. In R1, her outfit showed curves, but in a respectful way. But in R2, they dressed her in the most ridiculous outfit. Here's the best way I can describe this. They first drew her naked, then painted her with that outfit. How else do you explain the way her body fills it out? Code Geass already had enough women to sexualize. There was no need to bring Cornelia into this. It's a shame too because outside of the fan service, they made Cornelia even prettier in R2, and she's one of the more dignified characters in Code Geass. It's obvious that R2 needed more episodes to tell its story. I couldn't give you an exact number, but it would need to be at least 36 episodes. But this does beg the question, if they had a limited number of episodes to work with, why did they waste time with the filler? The new recap films added new scenes that added new information and clarified events in R2. I wish they released a new version of R2 with those added scenes instead of creating the recap films in the first place. It's great that those scenes exist, but since they are only in the new films, they're not canon in this timeline. What's worse is that neither the picture dramas nor the audio dramas fill in the gaps in between the events of R2, favoring instead on focusing on more trivial matters when the people watching needed more explanation of what was going on. More episodes could have led to more time with all the knights of the round instead of just Anya and Gino. Eventually, Bismarck and Bradley get some scenes, but we get almost nothing with Dorothea, Monica, and Nadit. We don't even see Monica's or Dorothy's nightmare frames before Suzaku killed them. If you want more content with the Knights of the Round, then I would recommend reading Oz the Reflection. But you shouldn't have to do that. Another casualty of this rushed story was the Ragnarok connection and the new Geass abilities. There were too many outstanding issues that needed an explanation. I wish something similar to Naruto Shippuden had happened in reference to this plan. To avoid spoilers, all I'll say is Infinite Tsukiyomi. So R2 added many new characters, including Jinkei and the members of the Chinese Federation, the Knights of the Round, Rollo, Minase, Hinata, Futaba, and so many others. But Lelouch, Suzaku, and C2 go through the most amount of character development. We needed more time with the other characters. Despite this, I felt that most of the subplots with the minor characters were resolved on some level. The biggest being Ogi's relationship with Valletta, Jeremiah Gutwald's loyalty, Sayako as Detard's secret agent, Anya's memory issues, and Millie moving on after graduation. I have heard complaints that R2 became less about strategy, favoring battles that are decided by whoever has the strongest nightmare frames. That's not accurate. Code Geass has always had nightmare frames that render tactics useless since R1. In Stage 2, Suzaku ruined Lelouch's plans by defeating all the terrorists with just the Lancelot, and that trend continued throughout all of R1. I think the problem that people were actually upset about was the power creep in R2. In R2, the rate of newer models increased rapidly, that every fight was won or lost from the outcome between a handful of nightmare frames. This left everyone who had an inferior nightmare frame worthless in combat, and they had to upgrade their nightmare frames just so they can keep up. R1, by contrast, had fewer advances in technology, so power creep was not as big of an issue. Strategy still existed in R2, and this criticism wrongly takes away from the brilliant plans used by the different leaders. All the new nightmare frames, especially the ones that belonged to the Knights of the Round, were awesome. I love the scenes of Colin and Suzaku absolutely destroying their opponents in the Lancelot Albion and the Gurren Satan 8 elements. They both took out the trash, if you will. Colin rescuing Lelouch was my favorite Colin scene in all of Code Geass, and that battle was an example of how the conflicts in R2 were larger than R1. Even the smaller battles in R2 dwarfed the Black Rebellion in R1. My favorite battle comes from turn 23 when Lelouch battles Schneisel in a large-scale version of chess with each of their forces respectfully. The F.L.E.I.J.A in R2 was one of the best parts and possibly the most controversial. The setup for this started in R1 with scenes of Nina working on it. She even discussed the uranium isotopes with Lloyd, and the part where she unsuccessfully activated the F.L.E.I.J.A. Even though I knew what the F.L.E.I.J.A was capable of, the scene where Suzaku fires it still shocked me. And speaking of Nina, she and Suzaku had excellent redemption arcs. Both acknowledged their mistakes and worked alongside with Lelouch to atone for their sins. It's one of the strongest and most overlooked parts in R2. Besides Nina and Suzaku, Rollo was the other character that fans hated. I get it, he killed Shirley. But I never hated him because of that. In reality, that was Lelouch's fault, and Rollo redeemed himself when he saved Lelouch after the Black Knight's betrayal. I can't decide which series had the stronger emotional moments. While R2 had the scenes between Colin, C2 with Lelouch, Shirley's death, Rollo's death, Nunnally's reveal to be alive, and breaking Charles Geass, Marianne's reveal of being alive, and Lelouch's sacrifice at the end of the Zero Requiem. R1 had everything that happened at the Special Administrative Zone of Japan, Shirley's memory wipe, her father's death, Suzaku's reveal as a Lancelot pilot, Dalton's death, and the emotional reveal of Zero's identity. It doesn't really matter either way because it shows how much of an emotional impact this series had on me. The Zero Requiem is still considered to be one of the greatest endings in anime history, and who am I to argue? The series ended the way it started, with that famous expression, the only ones who should kill are those prepared to be killed. The art in R2 was a big step up from R1. You can see the differences in the facial animations and the improved details like on the Nightmare frames, and featured even more impressive set pieces. The music and the sound, again, are excellent and even better than R1. I'm not a big fan of Opening 4, but Opening 5 in both music and the visuals were well done. The ending visuals are now abstract, featuring drawings of the characters reflecting religious symbolism. I liked when they showed all the ending art stills in the last episode's credits. The recaps before each episode are even better in R2 and I liked how Suzaku and Lelouch provided recaps before certain episodes. It made sense because C2 stealed her memories, so how could she? Despite parts in the story where you had to shut off your brain to enjoy, R2 was an excellent follow-up to R1. It had some issues that came from going in the wrong direction with certain elements of the plot, and I personally liked R1's more grounded, simpler story, but I love the events in R2 as well, including Lelouch's rebirth, Colin receiving the Gurren flight-enabled version, the entire Chinese Federation conflict, the UFN, C2's wish revealed, the Battle of Tokyo 2, the Ragnarok connection, and of course, the Zero Requiem. And all of this is why Code Geass is one of the best animes I've ever watched, which still impresses me 10 years later. Thanks for watching. If you want more Code Geass content, check out my blog. I got some new articles that you might enjoy. I've started to work on some updates for the anime streaming guide, so that's something you're not going to want to miss. But now I ask you, what was your favorite part of R2? Was R2 better than R1? Let me know in the comment section below. And remember, the world is not a dark place, and tomorrow will be a good day. Thanks for watching.